Hi. Um, there's a lot more of you than I expected. There's like a fair few number of subscribers already, and I am very shocked and flattered. So, I wanted to do a video discussing sort of my relationship with graphic design and how I intend to make things for this channel going forward. So I thought I would share my screen and show my stuff. Um, of course, there we go. So, um, when I started being interested in science illustration and graphic design, one of the things that I was looking at was, like I said in the previous video, like really beautiful graphic design and illustration and painting from um, the like 16 to 1800s. And, you know, you have this sort of wealth around the world of people making diagrams because we have this very human desire to like register everything that's going on around us. And that's one of the earliest things that art was for. You see cave paintings of different animals that people would have been experiencing. So it's absolutely fascinating, and I could go a million different directions into talking about stuff like that. But basically, I wanted to start with like the stuff that I was looking at for my MFA thesis, and I had mentioned Darwin's finches. And you see like even though this isn't a perfectly photorealistic illustration, this is like so important to get the idea across about like the different beak shapes that had evolved for eating different kinds of foods. And it's immediately apparent. And so, sort of bordering right on perfect photorealism versus abstraction, you have an illustration like this that is very clear and very just beautiful. Like I personally have always been drawn to illustrations like this since I was a little kid. And I think that's one of the other things that I'm really interested in striving for with Same Wavelength is that science illustration and science education are appealing not just to adults, but also to children. And sort of everyone has this innate ability to be pulled in by stuff like this. And I'll talk more about science, television, and education and pop science in a little bit. But then I was also drawn to stuff like this. This one I just pulled off of the internet, but I think everyone's seen a million of these things, like different botanical posters or anatomy posters from, I think, typically like France and Italy. And this style was always really appealing to me. And just something about something that's so effortlessly beautiful, but not just a painting, right? It's doing something more. It's showing different examples of varieties of things. Um, and so these were sort of my models of what I was interested in. And so in grad school, I started making stuff like this. This is an illustration of different systems in the body. And I remember making this and being so proud of this. I made it as a four-color Rizzo print, which was like a huge labor of love. And someone helped me with that, which is great. Um, but I remember showing this to my professor, and my professor basically saying, "This is just an illustration. This isn't graphic design. It doesn't teach you anything. There's no words." And I was so frustrated because I loved making work like this that's simple and elegant and clean. And I thought, certainly, yes, you need to have some background in anatomy, some second grade level education to say, "Oh, I recognize bones and, organs and whatever." Um, but I basically came to this crux where I was like, this is the best kind of work that I can make. This is work that I find interesting and beautiful and am really proud of. Like one of the few pieces that I was really proud of making in grad school. And it basically didn't meet the standards of my program. And so that sort of led me to believe a few different things. One was that I need to make the work that I'm interested in pursuing. I think a lot of art students feel that way. But also that yes, I need to like take criticism in the sense of like if I'm really truly interested in educating people, it's very difficult to make a piece of art and balance that with, words, with text that says this is what this is. Like you have to not have a level of abstraction, you have to have a level of realism, all of these other things. And so that I took to heart, but I also came to the realization that like there is probably a space for the kind of work that I want to make, and other people would be interested in it. And it just might not fit into the boundaries of currently existing projects or realms of thought. Um, which isn't to say I'm original and unique. Obviously, clearly things like this have been made before, but I had to learn how to trust my gut and make work that was interesting to me and know that it was good, which is the hardest part of art school when you're just getting critiqued every single day. So that is sort of this piece is a turning point for me where I was like, okay, I need to just make work that I'm interested in, that's sciencey, that's also beautiful. What's really important to me is that the work needs to be beautiful and appealing and something you'd actually want to keep, because otherwise you've made a flyer that someone's going to throw out. So this year, I worked on a series of posters in just very quickly over like the course of a week or something, where I was expounding on the previous work that I'd done like over a year ago. I had basically taken a break from this kind of work because I needed more practice, more experience, more design, whatever, skills, just influence. Sometimes it just takes a long time to marinate on a design thought for it to come to fruition. So I made these posters. This is the first one I made that's about the brain and neuroscience, and this is sort of where you can see me shifting towards, okay, it's abstract, but it has a little bit of data, it has a few pieces of information. It's slightly educational while still being a piece of art that you'd want to put on your wall. And so I made this one about leaves. And again, you have these abstract design patterns in the background, which are, I think these are like cell walls or parts of leaves. Again, I need to like go back and look at my own stuff. Because if it's not immediately apparent to me who made the work, then it's not going to be immediately apparent to someone who buys the poster. Um, but in a sense, it doesn't matter. It's, you immediately get the sense that this is something cellular or something plant-like. And it's like the abstract design decoration background. But I think there are ways for me to make it more clear and educational if I actually wanted it to serve a purpose, this background stuff. But then, yeah, I, designed these diagrams of, how different parts of plant life work, how, and again, one of the things I'm interested in is explaining simple questions like how do leaves work? How do bones work? These big questions that are seemingly really small. And if I can make a poster about something like that, then that's great. Um, did one on space. It's our solar system. And then like a little bit of stuff about the different shapes between asteroids, meteoroids, and meteors. Again, big topic, not a lot of space for me to explain that in text. And so I just, hopefully someone getting this would get the sense that, oh, meteors are these, things that are burning in the atmosphere. Meteoroids are tiny, asteroids are big. Um, but even if someone doesn't get that, I think there is value in just having something sciency looking around, something to excite your interest. Um, and then one on the rock cycle, when I was in middle school, one of my first ever like design homework projects was about the rock cycle. I made a little book about it. And I remembered that and it made me really excited. So I think that's something else I'm really interested in with this project is that um, when I was a kid, I was super interested in science, and a lot of that had to do with watching things like the Mythbusters, or cartoons, like I'd mentioned, like the Magic School Bus, Bill Nye, all of these different science programs that are for kids, Boomafoo, etc. And there's something extraordinarily valuable about that because when you think about if you talk to the average person about what kind of science makes them excited or like what scientific experience made them excited, it's probably not unless they had a really good teacher, it's not going to be something later in life. It's going to be like, oh, I watched the show as a kid and it really excited me. And like getting them young is a gateway into getting people in general as adults to care. And that's why it's also really important to have people like Carl Sagan, someone had mentioned on the comments in the previous video, who's someone I love, his work I love. Richard Feynman is just another person who's been one of my sort of spiritual guides forever. You have these popular physicists or just popular scientists in general who are taking something extraordinarily complex, and making it publicly interesting. And I think science and math are two things that are extremely daunting and very difficult seeming, because they are. If if you're a scientist, you're doing really nitty-gritty work. Um, and a lot of the tools that you're using are inaccessible, and that's what the training, is you remove a lot of people from the different levels of education as you go up because it's hard. I personally know that as someone who was a physics major and then transitioned into being a physics minor. Um, so it's really important to have people who can translate from sciences into English or whatever language, like just actual communication. And I think that's sort of the role I found for myself, someone who has this interest in science, but also these um, skills in discussion and art. And it seems extremely important and fulfilling for me to do work like this. So that sort of brings me to what I want to do with this channel. Um, Basically, I would love to make products. I'm still looking into different ways of printing things, print on demand versus not print on demand, because I don't want to create more waste in our system. But I do think having things, designed things, is really important. And I think having a YouTube channel is great, but I think being able to make something beautiful, both for me personally and for the world, is this extra component that's really important to me. Um, so this is sort of where I started. I made these three stickers about tree frogs. I'll do another video where I talk about why I'm interested in poison dart frogs specifically. But basically, I start by hand drawing the outlines of these frogs in my notebook. I bring them into the computer. I digitally color them so that everything is uniform. I'd like to print these out as stickers. I designed this to be a bookmark, the front and the back of the bookmark. And then sort of went from there where, these things very easily can go a million different ways. Could be a wallpaper, this could be a phone wallpaper background, you know. This is currently my phone background. This is a t-shirt mock-up. You have a million different ways that these things can go. And then obviously posters is sort of like the first thing that I think of. So I designed these posters, which end up feeling very 90s nostalgic because that's my personal style. This work could have looked like anything. It just so happens that my personal interest in design is these very thin line illustrations that are inspired by French comics and Japanese prints. And basically, my color palette and design palette is just entirely influenced by the 80s and 90s, really bright colors typically, and a lot of black and white. Or one color and black. I worked as a letterpress printer for a while, and that's how I did my original design apprenticeship. And so I'm very influenced by the aesthetic of like one color against a background. Um, Again, something I'll talk about in another video because there's so much to talk about that's all interconnected, as you can tell. So, but this is sort of the direction I'm interested in going in, is making these products. And I think they're very appealing. I think there's something um, wonderfully genderless and ageless about this work. Basically, one of my gripes with art school is that we were constantly told to think about who your audience is. And when I told people that my audience really was everyone, I'd like my work to be fundamentally accessible to everyone, um, at least everyone who can see my artwork, um, or who speaks English. Like, I would get in trouble for being too broad. And I think that's really upsetting because, for me at least, for this work, which is all about sort of the activism of science education, uh, your audience should be everyone. It should be as wide as possible. You shouldn't be narrow in your scope, because why would you ever want to exclude someone from being able to understand something fundamental about the world around us? Um, and that also goes back to like this kind of understanding that often the sciences are inaccessible, not even maliciously, just accidentally. And I think one of my jobs is to be able to get, experts to talk to each other within the same field, experts in different fields to talk to each other, and those people to be able to talk to people who are lay people. And all those different levels of communication require different but similar ways of tackling this sort of issue of translation between something technical and difficult into something accessible. Um, and I think art's a great way to do it. I think personally, like being able to make something beautiful that people appreciate is a great way to do this kind of work because it's fun. And I think the more you make things fun and beautiful and exciting, the way easier it is to do the challenging stuff. And I think that's why people are so drawn to shows like Mythbusters, which um, really include an element of comedy and human nature in the sort of telling of science stories. And ultimately, like, in a dream world, I would have a TV show where I'm, teaching science to people. But in the real world, I don't. I don't have the resources to do something like that. I can't just do a bunch of experiments. I'm not um, made that way. And in the same sense, it'd be great to have a store and to be able to like sell my objects, but I'm not a business person. I'm not interested in doing shipping. Um, so I'm sort of constrained by my own personal limits and knowing myself and what I like to do and want to do. And that is a mixture of talking, lectures, interviews, writing, and also making these objects. So that's kind of where I'm at. Obviously, my plans are going to unfold. Having so much public support from strangers on the internet um, is really exciting to me. I like cried yesterday when I saw that like I'd uploaded this video and already had so many subscribers without even doing anything. I've never had so much public support for a project that I'd done, and I've done like 3 or 4 different YouTube series in the past under different channels. So that's really exciting. I'm looking forward to doing more videos. I have one coming up about Muybridge, the historical figure, and how his work applies to animation and science. And I'm going to do some book reviews and some other things. I'm going to interview some of my friends about their art practices, about their science practices. And yeah, I'm super, super, super passionate about this stuff, as I'm sure everyone can tell. And I'm excited to see where this all goes. So thanks for your patience and interest, and I'll be here.